next life affects how you live this life, and whether you'll be prepared for what lies ahead. None of us knows when it'll be our turn. But notice, each of these after-death scenarios contradicts the others. If one is correct, the others aren't. One option is unique. Jesus Christ is the only person who actually conquered death. And Christ offers his life to you, giving you a new life that can begin now and continue after death in heaven. A life that doesn't depend on your goodness, but on his. Are you ready for death? You can be.
Pizza parlors, ice cream shops, entire cities have been leveled to piles of rubble. Well, according to the United Nations, June marked the highest number of civilian casualties of the war. There's not a solution that's going to make everybody happy, but the bloodshed and the warfare, it's got to stop. I believe we have as a country an obligation to help bring an end to this conflict. So I'm grateful that President Trump has put a deadline on Putin to make a peace deal with Ukraine or face some rather serious economic consequences. You know, here in the States, we think about war differently. It's almost like it's just a video game. We get the news clips on Ukraine while we have our coffee, or we see the photos of the destruction that happened that day over our evening meal. It doesn't even feel real to us. We've recently published a book. It's called Angels, Demons, and You. There's a verse in Hebrews that I used in the book. It says that we should be aware that sometimes we have entertained angels without knowing it. Well, I had an event recently. At the end of each worship service, I stand at the altar and pray with people who have needs or requests or listen to what's happening in their lives. Recently, I had a man come up, introduced himself to me. He just told me his name was Benjamin. He had a bit of an accent. And he said, "Pastor, we need to pray that the war will end in Ukraine." And he didn't have anything else to say. No commentary. He didn't explain to me why he was at church. He clearly wasn't a regular part of the congregation. That's not a normal interaction. In real time, I didn't really process it. We stopped and we said a very simple prayer, and he slipped away in the crowd. There was a line of people. But as I reflected on that conversation, later in that evening, in the days to come, he met all the criteria that verse in Hebrews reminded me of. He didn't hand me a business card that said I'm an angel, but he brought me an assignment. And I've been praying from that day until this, that war in Ukraine would end. And so I would like to invite you to join me, whether it's a heavenly messenger or just a prompt from somebody that randomly visited our congregation. Either way, I believe we've got a divine assignment to pray for peace in that part of the world. If we will, I believe God will listen. Well, we'll be right back with your emails.
Emotional, and they were bringing all this detail and facts that I didn't know all of it, and I read this stuff 24/7. So I thought it was a total treat, and it's not something you're getting anywhere else. So why are we saying, oh, this is unique, this is original, no one else is doing this? Oh, well then let's just stop doing it. No, that's the exact wrong way to approach media.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't want to give too much credence because I think the criticism rises to the surface. The audience loved it. I've gotten hundreds of messages and thousands of comments thanking me because I moderated. I think I have very, strong views on this stuff, and I'm very much in Josh's view. I think Dave brought up some points on the neoconservatism stuff that I'm fully in alignment, but his anti-Trump stuff, obviously, I don't agree with. But what would you say when people say, well, you can't platform that person, even though it's in the scope of a debate?
Yeah, I completely disagree with that, and I'll tell you why. Because I learned so much about Dave from this, because it's the most I've heard him speak. And to be honest with you, I didn't find his arguments overly persuasive, but I felt like that was actually comforting to me, that, like, as someone who's most for Israel, very much a Zionist. Looking at this debate, I did not feel overly intimidated, but I got to understand where he's coming from. I'm very empathetic and sympathetic to someone who's coming from the sort of Ron Paul wing, where Ron Paul's been vindicated again and again over the years. And if that's sort of your baseline, and you're just going to assume that basically I'm taking he's my North Star, and then I'm going to pick and choose from there, it helps me understand where people are coming from. How am I going to understand where he's coming from if I'm not one to seek out his content, unless someone like you is moderating a forum like this? It makes perfect sense to me. And the key to media, the key to getting people's attention right now is you have to do something unique. You have to do something original. And where else are you getting a debate like this? I haven't seen one in forever.
What would you say, because there's like a couple major issues, aid to Ukraine, mass deportation / some, not President Trump whispering, amnesty. What were some of the biggest issues that you were hearing about? I know Epstein got a lot of attention. I don't want to talk much about that. Okay, I think we've exhausted it. I told people in the audience, like, I am trusting my friends in the administration to proceed. The ball is in their court. Cash, you're the man. Bongino, you're the man. Pam, great friend. Ball is in your court. Take it. Run with it. I have the full faith. I think all that is said is needed to be said this last weekend. It's just repeating the same thing over and over again. But what was like the most shocking thing that you wish an average older conservative could learn from what you saw at the event or the conference?
Yeah, but I think the Epstein thing, what's important about it that's worth mentioning is that the transparency thing is a big deal, and authenticity and feeling like you can trust the government is a big deal, and over-promising and under-delivering is going to affect newer voters to the coalition. And I'll tell you, Charlie, for my audience, I put a lot of cold water that we were ever going to get great answers on Epstein. I figured they were either too complicated to release and they could really interfere with the lives of innocent people, or it wasn't as bad as people thought. We knew it was bad, obviously, but that stuff was out there. So I was always very skeptical we'd get much, but it's the over-promising from certain members of the administration that things were going to come out. That's the real problem, and that's the point, is the authenticity and the transparency makes a big deal. They do not want to go and fight useless wars for other countries. That is flat out, and that's why I think that's a very important pressure, because I think the way Trump handled the Iran situation was, but I think a World War III or ground war is totally would be intolerable for the whole nation. So it's good to see that. And I do think there's a deeper concern that the system is rigged to favor a few people at the very, very top. And that is something that the right is not, I don't think we're grappling with that. And you brought this up as much as anyone, Charlie, that if we don't figure out a way to message on this issue, we run the risk of seeing the Mamdanis rise, who have terrible ideas, but you say it with a smiley face and maybe you say it persuasively, and it could get through to some low information people.
And if we do not have more young people be able to own homes and stop renting, political radicalism will rise. Political radicalism will set in to the nation and the country. Final question here, Alex Marlow. Biden auto. You've covered Biden a lot.
Yeah.
I got to let you riff on this.
Yeah, this is exactly what we thought we were getting when we had heard that this is the best case scenario in terms of people who think the Biden administration was basically illegitimate. When you see that he did not approve many of the names pardoned with the auto pen, this is where the legal apparatus, if worked effectively, can start unraveling parts of his administration. Because if we can determine that was in fact illegal, and it should be, the president's supposed to sign this stuff. Whoever came with this auto pen, it is for certain things. For certain things, maybe they'll determine it was okay. But for certain things, this is absolutely illegitimate. This could open up some of those investigations to try to get justice for President Trump and for the American people who got railroaded by this guy. So I'm not surprised, but I'm very heartened that we now have attack vectors in terms of trying to unravel some of the horrible stuff Biden did.
Alex Marlow, check it out, Breitbart.com. Does excellent work. Alex, thank you so much.
Thank you, Charlie.
We're back now with the decorated former Navy captain, Chuck Nash. Chuck, I'd like to pick up on the Pentagon report on our U.S. military stockpiles. That report also warned that we may need to slow down on assisting Ukraine because of the rapid military buildup that's taking place in China. Given that China is continuing to invest in its military, there are some real questions about whether their targets go well beyond Taiwan to the Philippines or elsewhere in Southeast Asia. Is there any way to know where else they might try to move in?
Well, I think they're going to continue their efforts to expand into the South China Sea. It's become very, very obvious that what they intend to do is build like the Japanese did on the eve of World War II. They're trying to build out rings in the inner island chain and the outer island chain. So they are already establishing airfields in islands thousands of miles from China. And they will probably get in with the joint usage with the host nations, these islands, and build larger and larger airstrips to take cargo aircraft and then be able to ferry fighter aircraft out to those islands. The other thing is, by building such a robust, not only in range, but in depth, defense with conventional forces, it really presents the United States with that dilemma, that Sun Tzu Art of War dilemma, which is, can you convince your enemy not to fight in the first place? That is the smart war, and that's the Sun Tzu Chinese way of thinking. And so they're investing in everything now to put up such an amazing deterrent, because for us, it would be an away game. For them, it's a home game.
Well, the Trump administration is pushing back on China's investments in U.S. land, especially the many parcels that have been purchased around U.S. military bases. That's on top of those big spy balloons they floated in. Do you think that the administration should take back
During the
buy back
Biden
what the Chinese have already
administration,
bought
by the way.
and keep them out for good?
That investment, Pastor, but I think that what the world has seen, the creativity that Ukrainians used with those trucks that they drove deep into Russia, and then they put them on the doorstep of critical military installations, and then just remotely had those drones come out. So if they own the land, it would make it more convenient for them. But given the tens of thousands of Chinese people who have come into the United States illegally and are here illegally, one has to wonder how many of them are fifth column. We don't know. So we could make the investment, but I think really what is required is something that I'm afraid we lack, and that's a good counterintelligence capability.
Well, you've spoken how Russia has the advantage with this large population. So I'd like to ask about China, which has 4 times the population of the United States. Could the same be said about China's military advantage over our country, at least in the terms of just troop strength?
That's a great question. And the reason why I say it's a great question is, if you look at the demographics in China, time is not on their side. Because of their one-child policy back in the 70s, they have an aging population. Their rates for manufacturing are going up to the point where Indonesia and Vietnam are taking over a lot of their manufacturing. And the same thing is going to happen for military-age males. The population is aging and aging every moment. So they're going to, that's a forcing function for them. In other words, it's a use it or lose it. They see the clock running out, or the sand coming out of the hourglass, whatever metaphor you want to use. So there are a lot of things that are coming together all at the same time, and they're going to converge. And so the point is, at that point of convergence, do they say it's not worth it, we're not going to make the final straw
Russian
and wind up with a kinetic
Russian
event? Or do they say, no, time's up, we're going in and we're taking Taiwan, and we're just going to hope that all of our preparations have dissuaded the United States from intervening?
Well, there are reports that China is building robot soldiers. Is that another significant threat in their arsenal?
It is, and because of their demographics and the earlier point about them losing manpower in their manufacturing, they are massively ahead in drone technology and robotics because of that very thing. They're trying to keep their costs down so that they can maintain their manufacturing dominance. And the military is, as you point out, a classic for using robotics.
Well, one positive sign that's been reported this year, with President Trump as commander-in-chief, recruitment numbers are up across the board. What do you hear that the young men and women are thinking as they begin to sign up again, especially after so many years of staying home?
The silliness is gone, Pastor. Mm-hmm. The silliness is gone. Pete Hegseth has come in. The president has come in. No more of this stuff. That's it. And as you point out, not only did they make their recruiting goals, cut is way up. And when you think about it, the fiscal year is not over until the 30th of September. They made their recruiting goals last month for the entire year. So it's a new day. And I think with the new sheriff in town, a lot of deputies are signing up.
Thank God. It's refreshing to once again see our young men and women willing to stand up on behalf of our country. It's a good sign for all of us, I think. Captain Nash, I thank you again for sharing your expertise with us today. It's always a rich learning experience listening to your knowledge from the inside. Enjoy your summer up by the lake.
You're too kind, Pastor. Thank you. It was a pleasure being with you.
Well, in a moment.